Welcome to Forward Thinking, taking a deep dive into some of the biggest challenges facing real estate and tech today. We meet some of the most inspiring minds in a bid to find sustainable solutions. Well, I'm delighted to be here this afternoon with Michael Beckerman, the legend from across the sea. Michael,
I don't know about that.
very, very good to have you here.
Good to be with you, Guy.
Well,
yeah.
maybe rather than me sort of introduce you to our adoring fans, maybe give me a sort of a 30-second sort of bio on Michael Beckerman, who he is, what he stands for, and maybe achievements to date, and what are you looking to do in the next
sort of. It's going to be really short.
What have you got planned for the next 30 years?
It's going to be really short if we talk about my achievements.
I doubt that.
I feel like I'm just getting started. Even at this ripe old age. Thank you, sir. Very kind. So Michael Beckerman, I've been in one industry my whole career, just different parts of that industry. So it's my whole career, about 35 years, has been in commercial real estate. First, 2/3 of that have been in the media, the public relations side, built an agency, exited that industry, that business, looking for the next blank canvas, was fascinated by technology and why the world's biggest asset class doesn't have a tech sector. It has technology companies, but it doesn't really have an emerging tech sector or a global ecosystem. So I just set out to try and help be a facilitator and organizer, a builder of that ecosystem through Cretech, which is our brand. And we primarily run two large conferences in New York and London. We've got a big audience of over 100,000 people that follow us, and venture, startups, and then the end users, the customers, the corporates, the commercial real estate companies themselves, and many, many, many more parts of the ecosystem. But those are the primary ones. We bought a company in London, 2019. Good timing, I know, right before COVID, called Future Prop. So Europe, for us, as you know, is a big market that we're really excited about, as well as other parts of the world at Cretech.
So how did you get into the media side of it then? Because Cretech is obviously a media business. Why didn't you go into the tech side of it yourself then?
Oh, it's a great question.
Left of field question. I know this is a fireside chat, so I feel we can throw this around and be a bit left of center. So if I ask you something you don't want to answer, just go, Guy, I'm not answering that, and we can edit it out, or you can not. So I'm just interested. I'm just curious.
Yeah, there's nothing that's off the table. No. It's a great question. I find, just for my own particular journey, I kind of just try and keep my eyes and my ears open to where I could see opportunities and that match my particular strengths. Yeah. And I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a tech founder. So for me, it was more about being a facilitator and an organizer, and helping, because I know this industry so well, the real estate side, just helping, all the stakeholders understand where things are moving and where they're going. So markets and cycles, Guy, is something that's always fascinated me. So, that's really decided to put my energy.
And I guess as sort of sitting in that sort of media slot, you do get to influence. You get to meet lots and lots of different people. They will listen to you, and you can see from a broader point of view what's going on. So yeah, I can see the appeal for that.
Yeah, I mean, I love my job. I love this industry. It's hard as hell. I left a job where I was running my old PR firm that we had just hit our strides, and we were scaling. But for me, that wasn't the goal. The goal was just, as an infinite learner, are you learning? Not really. Are you growing? Not really. Are you passionate about it? Not really. So therefore, for me, it was like, okay, been there, done that. Let's go try something else and start from the bottom, start from the scratch, building from scratch. So, yeah, it's
interesting. You mentioned passion. I'm very passionate about what we do here, and have been since the early 2000s, really, and trying to build a business, but also trying to educate people. And there is still a huge sort of block, I think, in the UK. I mean, we've talked about this before. You think it's even more
felt stronger in the US in terms of actually trying to roll the sort of whole digital program and sort of, technology program into real estate across. So I have a lot of frustrations in terms of some of the clients that we deal with and some of the way that real estate looks at technology in the UK. What are the main frustrations that you find from a US point of view? I'll be interested to see if we have these sort of similarities here.
Well, I think if we just take a step back, Guy, there's so many misperceptions about technology in the built world. Most people that don't understand it or come from the outside, they think, well, they look at the size of the marketplace, this biggest industry on earth measured by global GDP.
Yeah.
It invests the least in R&D and technology compared to other industries. And it's not because, it's archaic or it's backwards or whatever. It's because it never had to. It's an industry that has worked pretty well for generations and decades, and great buildings are built, great cities are made and transformed, and great, money is made along the way. I mean, some of the wealthiest people in the world are working in this industry, right? So what is the role of technology? To just come in and say, I've got a solution, it's pretty cool. It'd be really nice to have a solution for this industry. It's gonna be really hard to get adoption because the industry doesn't have a lot of resources. It doesn't have a lot of talent in the sense that there's not a lot of people that are working in commercial real estate in technology. So here you've got this sort of nice to have. How are you going to get this adopted by this company when they're understaffed? They don't have the track record in using these technologies. And a lot of the technologies that are out there, unfortunately, they're nice to haves. They're not must haves. So I spend most of my time, Guy, just thinking about adoption. There's this sort of not false metric, but I think people get enamored with like venture funding. And I look at it and go, yeah, that's good. 20 billion, 30 billion, but it's not the true barometer. The barometer is adoption. What tools are getting adopted and why? The other challenge in the industry is that, so here's, what I described as you got an industry that doesn't have a lot of resources in terms of technology, doesn't have a lot of experience. And now you've got 10,000 startups, all in different silos that don't integrate. And you're asking the end user, the customer, yeah, pick us. And then the other one's going, yeah, no, pick us too. And it's just not understanding the customer journey. And so they're looking for single point solutions or tools that integrate and tools that solve problems. If you've got those, and you're not a risk, because adopting a solution that's underfunded or the product's not really there, that's the risk to the real estate industry. It's the sort of the technology risk. They're not risk averse. It's the most risk. This industry, gravitates towards risk because that's where all the wealth is created. Seeing developments and neighborhoods before anybody else does. That's real estate. And understanding how to attract people or residents or consumers, tenants to occupy those buildings. That takes a huge amount of risk. So it's not risk averse, it's technology risk averse.
I agree that. I guess it's tech phobia, as we call it.
Tech phobia. Yeah,
and it's this thing of just like, I agree with you. I don't think they are risk averse in terms of their business and what they've done for hundreds of years. And then suddenly the market drops and everyone swoops like sort of, praying eagles, picks up all the good deals, and then they sit back again for another 30 years and wait for the market to move again. So no, I agree with you. I don't think that they're not risk averse in terms of what they know, but it's what they don't know, and that's the issue. So for us, it's still a process of education, of actually trying to explain what those benefits are, what those ROIs are, how it's going to benefit them in terms of people, in terms of technology, in terms of data, and all this kind of stuff. And actually saying to people, you know what, it is going to benefit you. And then they're sort of going, okay, because real estate, it can move very quickly, but it also moves really, really slowly sometimes. And as you just said, there are 10,000 startups all going, hey, pick me. And then this is something that we've talked about, which was also a bit of a bugbear of mine, is the VCs, the guys who going in and really, really backing the 1 in 10 and giving these guys more marketing oomph than anybody else. They are going to rise to the top of that pile and go, pick me. They may not have the best technology. And in many cases, and what we're seeing, they don't have the best technology. I'm not going to name any names because we're not here to do that. But, what we're finding is that people are then going on board, buying it, coming away a year and a half later and going, okay, well, we clearly made a mistake on that. It's very shiny. They had some great marketing materials, but actually it wasn't necessarily the best product or the best service for us. So it hasn't really ticked that box. And then they come away from it. And also in the meantime, they're charged hundreds, if not millions of pounds worth, hundreds of thousands, if not sometimes millions of pounds worth for a solution that they can actually pick up if they do due diligence for a quarter of that price. So I think it's about education, not just in terms of saying this is what you can actually use technology for your benefit and for your occupiers' benefit, but also education in terms of what is out there, what is in the marketplace, and have a little bit of time to actually look around and see what else is out there, rather than just going for the first shiny piece. But that's just me.
No, that's well said, Guy. And the good news is for this platform, your platform it is a must-have. So, then it's just a question of identifying, which you've done so successfully, and your colleagues, the companies that are able to adopt the solution. I mean, that's the other thing that I see a lot of, where I'll talk to a startup and they'll sort of share their biz dev strategy, and I'll look at it and it's just really the largest companies by asset class. I'm going, well, but who's working in there, what tools they're adopting, and what they're looking for? That's education as well, is doing the homework to understand that company is a first mover, that company is an early adopter, that company is looking for these types of solutions. And I feel like there's just not enough. One of my criticisms or critiques of the industry as a whole is there's not enough time spent with the end user to understand their pain points and their priorities, So when we talk about London versus the US or the UK or Europe and different markets, there are even different priorities in different markets geographically. They're very, very different. And it's the same way in the US. You'll find the New York market might be completely different than the Chicago market compared to the Nashville market. And it's just, again, understanding the players, what their pain points are, and how your solution really solves a core problem of theirs. And the good news is, I think we're entering a period where in this environment, whether it's recession or not, clearly we've got inflation, extraordinary inflation in relatively recent times. You've got supply chain issues, you've got labor challenges, shortages, slowing economy. The winner there is technology and innovation, because that is what a lot of the companies are going to increasingly turn to mitigate a lot of those crises that they're dealing with. So I'm very, very, very bullish. I do think clearly we're in a cycle from the funding side where venture, well, they've got more dry powder than ever. They're being much more selective. The valuations are coming back down to reality, and I think that's also healthy for the ecosystem. So, my sense is that while we're still, sorry for the baseball analogy, we're still in the second inning of the prop tech evolution, what have you. I think the next 1 to 3 years, we're going to really see a lot of scaling on behalf of the tech companies, a lot of M&A consolidation.
Yeah.
Good.
Already seeing that.
You're seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, so these are good trends for us as an ecosystem, and healthy and maturing cycle as well.
It's interesting. You talked about different players and different stakeholders. So we've when we started the business in 2005, we really focused on the agents, because the agents had much more sway. I think the landlords just weren't involved in the decision making at all. They were really absent. Last 5 years, maybe, landlords are now making much more of a play. And again, this is all within this sort of the ecosystem of top 5% of buildings being those big sort of iconic sort of 500,000 square foot buildings. For us, that's probably small fry for you, but they're quite big buildings for us in little old London here. And then everyone, and those guys have very big sort of service charges. So they can afford to have big systems, and pay top dollar for the big shiny systems and everything else, whatever that is. But it was the landlords, increasingly the landlords are now getting involved and paying for this stuff rather than it traditionally coming out of the service charge. So it's an interesting little sort of movement here where the landlords, and we're seeing this, there's one big estate, which I won't name, various other sort of big buildings where the landlord is now dictating what's going on in the building in terms of branding, in terms of comms, in terms of the whole sort of tenant engagement thing. And it's not the agency who previously was very much will appoint the front of house and the building managers will work with the tenants and we'll go back and we won't really sort of, pay any attention at all to what the landlord thinks because the landlord's not really involved. As long as he's getting his buck every month or every quarter, then he's happy. That's different. That's changed. And that's a changing environment here. Do you see that changing in the States as well?
Yes. I mean, the landlords have.
And has that been happening for a while then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clearly. That's a very consistent trend that we've seen here. And I think the landlords are increasingly going to have much more impact, say, at the table as it relates to what tools are being used at the property level. That is, that the agents might be recommending or the brokers or what have you. But landlords, clearly, you look at the open jobs, look at the hiring that a lot of the big ones are making. They're making hires not just in innovation side, but also on the venture side. We're seeing much more sort of corporate venture, which again, I think is a very healthy sign of the growth and the maturity of the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Does that just go with the bigger buildings, or do you think that actually filters down to the sort of the smaller, the bigger estates, but the sort of as what I would call the tier 2, tier 3 buildings as well?
It's coming. It's getting there. It's so interesting, right? Because my view is that the U.S. led the prop tech sort of global expansion. I think it really started here. The ecosystem was very New York centric. It wasn't even a Silicon Valley thing because of the real estate industry was there. A lot of the early investors were big real estate companies, big, family offices, high net worth. And then, we saw the sort of the venture, the Fifth Walls of the world, Navitases, Camber Creeks, RET Ventures, big dedicated prop tech funds in the hundreds of millions, but and I think now, a lot of those companies are moving to London, they're moving to Europe, and they're expanding, and a lot of the European companies are coming to the US. But so we're definitely seeing a global sort of expansion now, the entire ecosystem. But when you talk about climate and sustainability, that's Europe first, no doubt. That US is a laggard there.
Why is that?
I just think, it's a great question, Guy. I mean, I've thought about it. I've talked about it with a lot of people. I just think, number one, culturally, I think it's more part of the fabric of Europe that, the environment is and climate crisis is real, and the environment is important. Not to say it's not here. It's just not as much of a focus. It is more with the younger generation, which is really great to see. The second thing is I think you have more aggressive legislation and political system where legislation is getting done. Whereas here, it's just stalemate. I mean, we've got some good news now, finally, but
I was going to say that's come across the water. That this massive has gone through.
Yeah, see the U.S.
That's good, isn't it?
It is good. The U.S. It's always been about capitalism, right? Which is a good thing, right? Like the private sector will solve these problems. That's the U.S. mentality, and it works, for the most part. I mean, we can get into parts of the world or the parts of the U.S. that it's not working for, such as affordable workforce housing, climate and things like that. But it's a very capitalistic culture. In Europe, it's capitalist, but it's also community, society first. With a great focus. So, and I think that, there's been some great legislation in the books. And whereas, I'll come over to London and I'll see all the uproar about a building being potentially torn down. I'll be in New York later today. I mean, every block there's a building being torn down, like this, so it's just a different mentality. The US, though, once it senses the private sector that there's money to be made on climate, it's going to go fast, and there'll be great innovation here. But clearly, we're a laggard to London, Europe.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? 'Cause I see a lot of similarities in the UK and the US, especially in the last sort of maybe 10 years since the Conservative Party have been in. And as a result of that, and as a result of Brexit, we seem to have become very much a sort of a two-party nation here. And that divide is getting bigger and bigger. It's not, the gap is not closing. It's becoming more and more prescient. I think in a way, I think we're taking a leaf out of your book in terms of your two-party system as well. The thing that always amazes me in talking to my European friends is that I think, and I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, is that I think we are the only country now, not in Europe, obviously, but in the European sort of mainland area, that doesn't have a sort of coalition party. Every other major GDP, every other nation has a coalition party. So you don't get those radical swings in terms of policy. So you do have a little bit of Greens, you have your climate guys, you have your, more sort of right-wing guys, but also that's balanced by your left-wing guys. And you have maybe 2 or 3 different parties who, because the country wants a bit of everything, it's all thrown into that pot. And actually it's successful and you get reasonable decisions. I know. So 70, 80 years hence, I go into New York, but I'll be long gone as well. And I go past the Michael Beckerman gravestone, and on it, it's got Michael Beckerman, 1965 to whenever it was. And
64.
he
Wish it
he
was
did
65.
Okay. He did this. What would you want on as an epitaph on your gravestone? If there's one thing that you would like to leave this world having achieved, have you ever been asked that before? God, that's a good question. Damn, that's a good question.
That was a good question. I mean,
and he's speechless.
No, well, can I give a two-parter?
Yeah, you can give as many as you want. It could be a really big gravestone. Come on, you knew it was going to be off the wall.
I love it. He raised 2 wonderful human beings with his wife.
Yes. Okay, we'll make personal and business. Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, that to me is my greatest legacy, that I reversed all the shit that I grew up in or created and paid it forward with these 2 wonderful kids that are going to go out in the world and just be good, kind humans.
Okay, so that's the personal side. What about the work side then?
Just
work epitaph.
It would be on Climate Guy. It would be that he made an impact on future generations by helping to build a more sustainable, climate-friendly real estate industry. And if I can achieve that, not single-handedly, of course, and just take a step back. I mean, I'm not one to be very reflective, but you've asked me a very reflective question. Because I don't really ever kind of look back. I really don't even look forward too much. I just try and stay very, very focused on the immediate. But I look at my journey professionally, and I said, what I think about it, I spent 25 years, 35 years in one industry, commercial real estate. I spent the last, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, and whatever it is in tech. Now I'm focused and building the prop tech, which is scaling well beyond anything I ever thought it would be. Now I discover this industry is the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. I am an environmentalist. I believe in climate science, and I'm terrified of the planet, what's happening. And Mother Nature, she's not waiting for us. She's just wreaking havoc because we deserve it, because we fucked it up. We had an opportunity, like you said, we had the chance, we had the data, we had the information, we ignored it. We said, punt, pass, push it downfield, somebody else's problem. I won't be alive, somebody else.
Yep.
Well, now all that sort of procrastination, denial is come to roost, and now it's here, and it's irreversible, right? So I got real estate, I've got technology, I'm passionate about the environment. All my roads have led to this moment, and this is now my mission. My mission is to decarbonize that industry that I know. So this is all, everything I've done, I look at it like this was all just getting me prepared for this moment, pretty spiritual guy myself. And that's what we learn in Buddhism, is that like there is this plan. and you don't really know it, but it's all these things are happening to you for a reason. So all those hardships of building my companies and stumbling and fumbling and, you know, the stress and all of that, now leading to this moment where, oh, that's what this was all about. Like literally, genuinely, that's how I see my life right now. This is what it's all been about, building to this moment. Sorry, because you asked me a question.
No. It's good. It's a good answer. It's a good answer.
I've ever gotten.
It's a good and it's a reflective answer. You should meet my mother, because she's always said to me as I stumbled from one thing to another in my early years, she said, darling, it's all fine, because it's all just making sense. You're just weaving your path to whatever you're going to do. I think
wise woman.
No one had any idea I'd end up, like you just said just now, that I'd end up doing this and in this position. So
yeah, that was all wise woman there. Guy.
All part of the plan.
It's all part of the plan, and here I am. So when you ask me what I want written on that tombstone, that headstone, whatever, that's it. Just he made a big impact on helping to save the planet. Drop the mic. Good.
A very good friend of mine's a stonemason, so I can get him to start on this.
Yeah, I'm not going to the ground though, so they're going. But still, we'll fly an airplane over it with that message, right? When they scatter the ashes on my farm.
Fantastic.
What about you? Whoa. What about you? I mean, this is a conversation, man.
Yeah,
what about you?
It is a conversation. I think, like you, I've got 4 wonderful children, and they're all off doing their own thing at the moment. So, and they're all lovely human beings. So I'm blessed in that respect. And I think work-wise, I don't know, having had quite a sort of varied career, I think what I wanted to do was I'll give you a little example. There was and he's going to hate me for this, but I won't mention any names. There's a guy that left us. He'd been here about 3 years. And he left us, you know who I'm talking about. And we went up, we did a big sort of summer social about 10 days ago. So we're in Oxford, as I think you know, we're not far from the river. So you can go and hire a steamer. So we hired a steamer. There's about 25, 26 of us. And we went down, there's a bit of a barbecue. We had a few beers and all that sort of stuff. And this guy had been with us for 2.5 years. And previous to us, he'd worked in a shoe shop. So, and we sort of picked him up and we said, okay, so you've got the right attitude. You have all the skill sets, but you have no experience at all. So we sort of educated him and taught him and showed him what to do. And he became a really important part of our sort of dev side on the admin side. Anyway, he got asked to go to somewhere else. So he's upsticked and gone. It's a good thing for him. And when everybody else was sort of picking their bags up in the boat and everyone was off, and it was just him and I, and he turned to me and he said, I just want to thank you. And I went, I said, well, I'm not going to say his name, but, and I said, no, thank you, because you've been great. You've been really, really good. And he gave me he just sort of reached out and you know me, I'm a huggy kind of guy. So he gave me a big hug and he said, you have changed my life. And to this point, I just normally just burst into tears because I'm a big sop like that. And I said, well, that's just lovely, because in a way, if I can do that to someone like that, then God, what more do you want to do in life? It really is. I mean, I've just become co-chair of our local hockey club. We've got about 500 people, sort of 300 kids. And I ran I was a youth development officer for ages and ages and ages. And it's the same sort of thing, is that you have these people in your life for a set number of years, and it's not forever. There are some people that stay a long time, some people that stay a few months, and some people stay a few years, and some people stay for decades. And that's all great, because different people want different things out of it. But just to be able to say it's a stepping stone, and you can help us, but actually we can help you, and you leave us enriched, in a better place, more experience, with more opportunity going forward, then for me, that's always been, whether you're a sports person or you've learned, some hockey skills, or you've learned some business skills or some admin skills, and we've done the right thing by them and they've done the right thing by us, then that to me is really important. So if that was my business epitaph, it's not about making money. It's not about being massively profitable. It's about the people, genuinely. So yeah, I think I'm going to go with that. Michael, it's been a pleasure. I think we're probably going to wrap it up there. We both got other things to get on with, and you've got a trip into New York. So thank you very much for sharing your time with us. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and we will catch up soon.
I appreciate it so much, Guy. I really always enjoy our conversations, and you're a source of great knowledge and inspiration for me. And the industry's blessed to have you and your colleagues and your platform, doing all that you're doing and leading the charge. And so I'm thrilled to spend some time with you, and it's just super excited about your platform and
Thank you.
Future. It's going to be bright. I have no doubt.
That's the aim.
Thanks,
Good to see you
guys.
again.
Good to see you.
Take care now.